So what these people know, these elite people that want to remain in control, is that if they can control the minds of millions or billions of people, then they control the energy. But what's happening is because of the internet, they're losing that ability to get away with as much. On this episode, I'm going to get a little bit esoteric with you. I'm going to be sharing with you 5 reasons the elites' plan to keep the masses in control will not come to fruition, signs it will come to fruition, and what I think and how I think some things will play out over the next couple years. But in general, it's also to show you that I don't think things are as fearful as it looks. Yes, it looks pretty crazy. You've got the media that is owned and controlled and always, has a counter that's showing this and having you increase your belief and being in more fear, which suppresses the immune system anyways. And things are becoming very, very obvious though. And, when I talk about the elite, by the way, what am I talking about? There are people on the planet that understand the energy dynamics on the planet. And what they do is they try to keep the public into a certain level of consciousness, into a very reactive state. Because when people are in a reactive state, they're much easier to control. And when you control the people, you can then control the resources, and they get a high off that power. Now, also, I'll talk about this in the episode. This will sound pretty esoteric, but I believe that a lot of these, it's literally like almost an organization where they have like these beliefs and dark rituals and things that I know sound kind of out there, but there's whistleblowers that have talked about this. There's people that have escaped these kind of energy dynamics that have talked about this. And they have influences as well, I believe, of different things that cause them to kind of remain in this level of control. I think that when the planet has a certain vibration, maybe even a lower vibration, there is more ability to control things. So one thing they do is they have these dark rituals they do that are very dark things that keep a certain level of consciousness on the planet. And then as they keep the population dumbed down, and one of the ways they do this is specifically through information. If they can control your belief system, they can control so they can control the belief system of the public. They can then control the energy dynamics. And that's what they've always known. So through Hollywood media movies, there's many influences there. Through the news, it's all owned by a few major corporations. And the intention there is the more that the belief system is formed and controlled, the more that we are more likely to give away our power and to allow these things to happen. A lot of us are just going with the flow. We could decide at any moment that this is kind of ridiculous or very ridiculous and decide not to go with it, but we allow it to because of we've been primed through going to school and being obedient and these different kind of like deep level programming that's happened for a big part of our life. But this is a time on the planet of us waking up to more of who we are and us realizing who we really meant to be in this life. So I get kind of esoteric in this video. There's a lot of energy in this video / podcast. For those of you that don't know, this is also going to be on my main YouTube channel. So I'm going to be posting this on my channel in the video format. And I think I might just start doing that, putting the video formats on the YouTube channel. Plus, it's easy to download and listen to on iTunes and Spotify as well, where it's completely free. And I have other episodes on the elite and the cabal and stuff like that. But in general, that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. It was a fun episode. I've already recorded it, and this is the intro for it. One thing I want to talk about before I get into it is something I haven't talked a lot about before. And even though you guys have heard me talk about what I do for energy, you've heard me talk about Organifi Green, heard me talk about the protein, there's one thing that I haven't talked a lot about that I just kind of want to make you guys aware of, and that is something called the Organifi Red Juice. This is something that has superfood berry blend of premium organic superfoods with potent adaptogen. It's like mushrooms and stuff. You guys know I love my mushrooms, and it's something that I use once again for energy. It is something that has something called cordyceps in it. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I've heard of it. It has to do with it's medicinal mushrooms with incredibly strong adaptogenic qualities. In 1993, the Chinese women's Olympic track team was accused of being on steroids for their incredible performance. Turns out they weren't on steroids. They were using these cordyceps. And guess what? These cordyceps are inside Organifi Red Juice. Organifi Red Juice is a powdered substance that what you do It's completely, you just take a scoop of it, you add it to water, you shake it up, and you drink it. You don't need a juicer. You don't need anything else. It's as simple as getting a scoop, putting it into water, and drinking it. And this is something that I use when I want energy. It's something that gives me sustained energy. There's also reishi mushroom, an 8-to-1 extract known as the queen of mushrooms. It's a powerful adaptogen that increases energy. It's very grounding us too. If you want to feel grounded, it's something to do. And it also, think of color therapy, right? It's red juice, red related to groundedness. There's beets in it, which is a root, and it's something that really helps me to feel grounded and also have high energy. So it's something that I use as well throughout the midday that for like an energy pick-me-up. As many of you know, I don't drink coffee. I don't do caffeine at all. I don't do green tea, but I use Organifi juice, and Organifi red juice is one that I haven't talked a lot about, but I've been loving it as of recently. It's almost like it kind of got overshadowed by Organifi green juice, which is also great, but it makes a huge difference. It's less than $3 a day to use, and it is so powerful for using for your energy, remaining in a high vibe, and it has a whole bunch of antioxidants as well. And it being organic is very important, and low sugar is very important as well. That's why I trust that of Organifi. And if you go to Organifi.com/Aaron15, that's Organifi, ORGANIFI.com / or backslash, I forget. But the slash Aaron, AARON, 15, and you use that code at checkout, you get 15% off any Organifi product. And I highly recommend and wanted to highlight this episode, Organifi Red Juice, which is a game changer for energy, for antioxidants, for those cordyceps. And I'm a huge fan. And anyways, I wanted to share with that. It's also a way of you supporting the podcast as well. Getting this juice that's going to help you anyways, helps support the podcast and helps me to keep things going here, to keep myself doing 2 episodes a week. So other than that, you go to Organifi.com/Aaron15, check it out, and I will talk to you guys soon in a second because we're getting into this episode. Talk to you in a sec. In between eating your food, make sure you wear your masks, okay? Wear your masks just in case that in between taking bites of food, you don't want anything to happen. So this, you see how ridiculous a lot of this sounds, by the way, too? When we talk about the elite, we talk about the control factions of the intention that the agenda is to keep people in, controlled, to keep people in lower states of consciousness. It's becoming too obvious. It's becoming way obvious. And when they say things, like a lot of these politicians, by the way, that are saying things like, oh, you got to wear this, you got to do this. And then they're found, like there's one guy, I don't remember if he was the mayor of I think he may have actually been the mayor of California, making these big public service announcements and talking about how serious we're taking this whole wearing the thing. And then what happens is he talks about how he went to the French Laundry, which is like a restaurant, like a high-end restaurant. And while he was there, he's like, oh, we wore a mask. We sat outside and all this stuff. And then there were pictures that other people took of him the day before where he was actually without a mask, eating food in the middle of the French Laundry. So it's like, okay, so you already lied about it, right? But the interesting part of this is that a lot of these people that are saying, you must do this, you must do that, they don't actually even believe it. If they did believe it, they would do it. Why don't they do it? Because they don't want to. Why don't they want to? Because they probably have, or they probably know that it is not that imperative, but it is very imperative to tell other people what to do. And I think a lot of people are waking up right now and just realizing, one, they don't want to be talked to like they're little kids. Wait, do this, do that. We take this very seriously. And it's becoming more and more obvious that this is just a show. This is just a way of people. Like, it's obvious they're trying to play the public. They're trying to play the people. They're trying to play them like little fiddles. But guess what? People be waking up. So this whole control faction thing, it's becoming way too obvious. And the beginning of the year, it's like, oh, now you could do this. Okay, now go back to your houses. And then now towards the end of the year, it's like, oh, everything's ramping up. Oh my God, everybody go back inside your house. Oh my goodness. And everyone's just like, are we serious? Like, you know how many people I've known, by the way, that, okay, and first off, let me say this. okay? Because I know I understand that I have like a platform and people sometimes hear this and it triggers people. But I understand that there are people that were harmed from this thing that has happened. I'm not only talking about this thing that happened at the beginning of the year. I'm talking about much more than just that. I'm talking about just the energy dynamics that have been happening for a very long period of time that keep people into a low level of consciousness because the media projects a level of fear that then keeps people in survival mode, which has them looking to authority so that what they do is they don't, really claim their own power. They're much more likely to give it away. I'm talking more about that. The thing that happened at the beginning of the year, I understand that some people were really affected by it. I understand that some people that follow me are nurses or they work inside the medical field and they've seen serious things happen. I'm not saying that that's not happening. What I'm saying is that it's very much being exaggerated, that there were, what did I read? There were more people in Japan that committed suicide last year than people that died from this thing that we're, working through right now all of this year. But yet that doesn't really make the news at all, or is even something we're talking about on a daily basis. But this other thing, you go to the news, there's a counter that's going up, and the counter that's going up is putting people in more and more fear. Now, here's the thing. I've met a lot of people that have had positive tests for that. But then they had almost zero side effects at all from it. They didn't even know they had it. But the tests are, you want to know something interesting as well? There are people that my dad's a firefighter, right? Fire investigator. He knows people that had to go get tested for it. They go get tested for it. They get an email the next day that says that they tested positive. They never even went in to take the test. There were some people that did not make the test, yet they tested positive. The same thing with some of the voter stuff that's happening. My sister, I'm just pointing these little red flags out there, okay? Just to show the little puppet show and the little funny things that are going on in the world. My sister, she went to go vote. She's 18, 19 years old. She's 19 years old, right? Yeah. I forget what part of the year we're in. She goes to vote. She gets the mail-in ballot. They spelt her name wrong. Instead of Doughty, it was like Doggy or something, or Gowdy. It was Gowdy with a G. She then goes in somewhere and says, hey, they spelt my name wrong. Can I put in my vote? They said, yeah, that's fine. They changed their name. They changed her name on this thing that she'd voted there. She could have still sent in the old ballot and her vote would have counted twice. Isn't that interesting? That it's not really checked like that? All I'm saying is that there's definitely margin for error for a lot of these things, and that maybe there's some agenda for things to look a certain way, because when things look a certain way, people more likely to give away their power. People more likely to believe. It's funny, I went to the Thanksgiving, and I went to my dad's house, my grandma, for example. She's like super media watch person. She loves the news. She watches it a lot. And even her, we're talking about some pretty interesting things. She's like, well, I don't know who started this. And she's like, I feel like this was started, and I'm like, what? Are you saying this? Like, regular people be waking up. They questioning reality because there's too many holes in the boat. It's like, water's coming here, water's coming here, water's coming here. And the energy dynamic of what we're going to see going into 2021, I believe, I'm not saying this for fear, by the way, I believe deep down there's going to be a very positive outcome of the things that are going to be happening in the world. It's going to look negative for a while, though. That's what I believe will happen. It'll look negative, but it's positive. The dark's agenda, when we say dark, the agenda of the elite is to keep people in fear and to keep people in a form of survival mode. What they are going to be doing these next year or two, or few years, is they're going to be like the last few cards up their sleeve. They're going to be like machine gunning them out, trying to like retain power. But the energy that's here on the planet now does not sustain that type of energy, that manipulative type energy. And not only that, there's too much almost awareness now that people just see right through it. People can feel what's authentic, what's not authentic. And I don't think a lot of people would argue that the news is 99.9% negative, but also there's some agenda there. Once you find out that the media corporations are owned by mainly the same big corporations, it's kind of obvious that there's some other thing going on. And this stuff sounds conspiracy. But remember, conspiracy theory is a term that was coined back in the day to keep people from trying to question their government. I don't believe every conspiracy theory I read. I don't believe a lot of them. But I do believe that reality is not what we are being projected out. I do believe that there are forms of manipulation that are happening at different levels, and that is keeping people into certain fear states that then keep them externalizing their own power. I do believe that, and I do believe that there is some truth in some of the things that I read. And how do I know that? I go within and I can feel my own level of discernment. There are certain things that leak that add up. For example, many of you may know this. I've shared this in other videos, but I know somebody in my life that I trust that has told me that worked. We know, like, not going to go into the details, but I know somebody that worked in underground facilities that were owned by private companies where they did different experimentations where it's not necessarily, we say it's the government, but it's these private corporations, and there's level of the army that protect these underground facilities that are, by the way, all around the world. A lot of the whistleblowers that are coming out talking about this kind of stuff, there's these underground facilities where they do really interesting things, where they house different types of things they're testing. But also, what this person has told me that I trust, that this really opened my mind up years ago, was they said 100% for a fact, the government, or whoever we want to call it, they know ETs exist. They've known about it for a long time. And there are things they are doing underground that we wouldn't even believe if we knew about it. Once I found out that, I started saying, okay, well, we're not told everything that we're led to believe. That stuff's not on the news. There are many other whistleblowers that have come out saying very similar things to what this person that I trust in my own life has told me. And I find it very interesting. That opened up my mind. That's when I realized, okay, this ET stuff, and as I've gone more and more within myself and my own spiritual awakening, I've realized ETs in this other light. Like, of course, I mean, we live in an infinite universe, and we're like, well, no, we're the one special snowflake. It's like obvious that's not there's more. But I also have this realization, or whatever you want to call it. You know, you go within and you start meditating and stuff, and I realize we are eternal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. I believe we have higher levels of connections to these other ET races. Now think about it. We have this large oversoul. Which I guess is debatable, but the idea is we're eternal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. We do not just have past lives on Earth. We have past lives in other civilizations as well, also at different levels of consciousness. I believe when we go to bed at night, we are awake to these higher states of consciousness, but we forget when we wake up in the morning. Now, as we go more within, as we meditate more, we may find that what happens is we get more and more memory of these realities that exist beyond the 3D Earth realm. And these ETs that I think sometimes we're so afraid of are actually other versions of us. If we even look at the universal truth that we are all one, then we can see that it's not that much of a stretch that they are us at a deeper level, the macrocosm, microcosm, as above, so below. However, it's probably kind of funny that we're so afraid of them, but they're actually like, they realize, and if they come from a higher level of awareness, which I think most of them do. Yes, there's some that are just like, it's like saying, are there good and bad humans? Of course. Or people with good or bad intentions? Of course. Are there ETs with good and bad intentions? Of course. Because there's contrast in the universe. But the ones of a higher level of consciousness have the awareness that we're all connected. That's why they would never harm us. At the same time, they're not going to help us. They're not going to give us technology and save us, because we came here to go through this process of transformation on the planet. Now let's look at a larger perspective. I'm going to share with you the 5 reasons the elite their plan won't work. I'm going to share that. But a larger perspective of this is, what if the elite is, from a spiritual perspective, what if their role was in a way kind of something they signed up for? And we signed up to remember who we are and to go through this transformation, and they're just kind of playing out a role. It doesn't make it right, but it does help us understand that maybe it's part of the game. Like, reality is a form of game. Yes, there's pain involved. Yes, like, these are avatar bodies that we tend to identify with. But it helps us understand that maybe the role they're playing is like, they're kind of playing a certain role, like the villains in a way. But we are coming to wake up, and it's almost there so that we can go through the process of remembering who we are. Now, the first reason the elite's plan to control the masses will not happen, you want to know what that is? It's very important. The internet. The internet is one of the reasons the elite's plan for mass control won't happen. Why? Because there's too much information on the internet. Even if they, skew the first 4 pages of Google and they control it to a certain level, there's just too much information. You even have social media, and it's just becoming harder and harder for them to control the information. At a certain level, yes, they still control the information. Obviously, they own the media, the mainstream media, which a lot of people aren't buying into as much anymore. But even little things like I was talking about at the beginning, you got this guy that's like, hey, everyone, you should put on a mask and wear it in between eating your bites of food at a restaurant. Okay, that's one side of it, right? And then that same person is at the French Laundry eating food, not wearing that, saying that they'd only eat outside if they did go. They're not outside. And somebody else takes a photo of them, and then the next day they're saying, oh, yes, I ate outside. And it's like, no, look at this. It's like, oh, well, I'm very ashamed of myself. I should have just gone home when they told me there was no outdoor seating. It's like, okay, you've lied. It makes me think you're not lying about this. But because there's this kind of connection between all of us, it's harder and harder for them to put on some type of fake show. And it's just becoming more, and even like, for example, the protests that were happening at the beginning of the year that were funded by different organizations, and not saying that it didn't exist, not saying, it's a whole, there's so many layers to all of this, but there were people, I was getting DMs from people that were at these protests telling me, saying this car was planted here before anyone was even here. And then there were even other people that were undercover that were going around doing different things that were like white people doing it. And when they were confronted, there was this really weird energy where you could tell that they were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. They were like hired to do certain things to make things look worse than it is, to make it look like these group of people were doing the stuff they weren't actually doing in a violent way. Some people may have been, but that's kind of the idea. It was an exaggeration. There were bricks that were planted very conveniently in different locations. And because you have these people that are like at there saying, listen, we did not do this. We did not bring this here. This is what is happening. And those videos getting out, and it's like, oh, even with the whole election thing, there are people that were with social media, even there were people that were literally burning different ballots, putting it on social media. Look, this is 10,000 ballots. Ha ha ha. And then doing that. It's on social media for people to see. Oh, like there's not other things going on, or like there's not a level of inaccuracy to some of the things that are happening. You see, people are beginning to question things. Now, first off, let's understand a little bit more about the elite. The elite. When I first learned about it, it's probably back in 2012. I started learning about like the Illuminati. The Illuminati, which, by the way, is probably like there's different levels to it, I think. The Illuminati is like the cheerleaders. It's like the cheerleaders to some deeper factions that we're not really aware of. I think the main players that are like the power-hungry people, I think that we never really see who they are, but the Illuminati is like this frontline cheerleader thing. And there are certain celebrities that are a part of it. It's like a dark cult in a way. And basically what happens is they are, I don't know the exact specifics, but I do believe that there's a level of this. It's very obvious in certain symbology that certain celebrities talk about, but also just from whistleblowers and other things. But there are, in a way, people that just, they understand the power dynamics, and they understand that if they keep people in lower levels of consciousness, they're easier to control, and they literally get off on like power. So that's one of the things they want to do. Now, there's some of these elite celebrities in a way that I think are just kind of doing what they are told because they're in so deep to some of this darker cult-like stuff. And they have a belief system. They have very dark things that I believe they do in order to do certain energy rituals. I believe that they tap into very esoteric practices that have been around thousands of years. And a lot of these people are just narcissistic, and they believe that they come from a bloodline and that everyone else is a sheep. So it's like they justify it a little bit more. But then what happens is they get in a little bit deep, because I think some of these people get approached at certain levels of success and influence. And what they do is the dark elite realizes that there's these celebrities that garnish attention, and they say, okay, well, if you will do this, then what will happen is we will give you this, or you'll get this level of significance, or you'll win this, or you get all these. And I think that they get kind of baited in based on kind of pulling on the strings of significance. And then what happens is they get in, and then they start doing these dark rituals, things like that, and then they're in too deep anyways. And then they just stay there, and then maybe it kind of takes on a life of its own. And these people, I believe, also may be influenced. This is where we get kind of esoteric, and you may shut off the video or stop listening, but I believe that there are different influences from different levels of reality. Some people may call these negative entities. I know it sounds freaking weird, but there's a guy named William Tompkins. He was was he a Navy sergeant? I forget. He was 90-something years old on his deathbed, talking about a lot of these things. And this guy's like straight as an arrow, very practical, not some woo-woo guy that was trying to get famous. He's like on his deathbed talking about how back in the day there were like Nazis that made deals with different negative ET races. And knowing what I have someone in my life that's told me that ET races exist and stuff, there are certain ET races that have negative agendas. And one of the reasons they have negative agendas is because there may not be many places in the universe they can go and have power. Where in this reality, there is free will. And we forget who we are in this reality to remember who we are, so there's a certain level of manipulation that they can have. So what they do is that if they keep Earth in a certain level of consciousness, they can continue to reign and have power here. And one of the ways they influence this reality is they influence some of the people. And they need people's permission to do so. But if they bait people, or if they get people kind of sucked in, and then they kind of are their cronies for making certain things happen, then it becomes this kind of like deal type energy thing. So I know it sounds pretty esoteric, but I've watched a lot of I've watched Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia. I've watched other things that are whistleblowers that all say very similar things, plus doing my own research and reading different things. You could also read The Law of One, Dolores Cannon material. These are different books you can, if you want to like look into this stuff a little bit more. And I know a lot of it sounds pretty out there, but let's just go deep. You know what I mean? I'm just getting bored of just kind of like sharing some of the surface level things that are like, no, let's go a little deeper. So, in this reality, we forget who we are so that we can remember who we are. And I think it's one of the reasons many of us are here right now. The only way to like almost help the Earth transcend to a higher level of consciousness, and for us to go through this process too, because we wanted to go through this like up-leveling of consciousness, was so that we had to forget who we are to remember who we are. And we had to play according to the game of this reality. And according to the Dolores Cannon material back in like the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, when we started experimenting with nuclear bombs, we were on a timeline where we would have destroyed ourselves. But according to the Dolores Cannon material, which is basically thousands of people that were in a deep level of hypnosis where their higher self subconscious came through and said that at a soul level, they chose to be here right now because this is a huge shift in consciousness happening in this life. That was one of the intentions of millions and millions of people that are here right now. Now, this also coincides perfectly with the Law of One material, which is channeled material from the 1980s, which is considered some of the most profound channeled material of all time, mainly because it was a physicist that was asking the questions, and it was very deep, like questions and answers that were some things that stuff we didn't even know in science yet that have come to be true, whether it's astronomy and different levels of physics, and it's come to be true. Now, one thing the Law of One talked about is this thing called the harvest. The harvest is this opportunity where these seeds are planted, where many of us have this ability and opportunity to go to a new level of consciousness in this lifetime. And there's something else that was talked about in the Law of One, and that is that there's certain levels of the government that already has ET technology back in like the early 1900s, and they've known about it for a long time. And that's just some sources you can kind of do your own research to check up on to see if it resonates with you. Now, because of the way this reality works, we were not like at higher levels of consciousness. We may have been in higher levels of consciousness, chilling in like, love and bliss. And like, man, I wish when we heard this call that Mother Earth in a way, or Gaia, was on a negative timeline, we felt the connection to Mother Gaia to come here and help. That's what it says in the Dolores Cannon material. But what happened is, as great as it could be that we could just land our ships and high technology and from a higher level point of consciousness, could just give the technology to Earth that would like free technology that would like clean up the atmosphere. As great as it would be, is we could just take these bad guys out of power and stuff like that. Even though there's an ability to do that, the way that it works here is that that's not how the game is played. And also that would be almost taking away the power of the people. It's almost like in Star Trek. They have that clause where you can't interfere. It's similar. We have our own level of consciousness evolution. This is, I think, one of the most exciting times to ever be alive on the planet. And we're here right now. And we're going through this transformation. Now, part of this transformation, though, is a falling away of the old energy. And us becoming aware of the old energy manipulative dynamics that have been happening. This level of control on the planet of these negative, you could say, ET race beings that have been influencing different people on the planet and trying to retain a level of control and power. It's been happening for a very long time, not just the last 20, 30, 40 years. But what's happening now is the old systems are falling away so that we're remembering who we are. Many of us are going through this awakening. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to remain their levels of power. And they're trying to manipulate, what the public believes. You see, they don't really have any power other than the fact, or other than us believing they do have power. But what they've realized is if they can control the minds of millions or billions of people on the planet, then they can control the energy dynamics. So even let's look at this, what happened at the beginning of the year. I don't say it because if you say it on YouTube, it's the video, can't say it. You could say it, but then this video won't, reach as many people. Now, what happens though is if you have many, many, many people believing in this thing even more than it actually has power, then guess what? The power of the mind is very powerful. So then what happens is it increases the belief in people. You see this ticker on the media going up and up and up. It increases the belief that you could get it. And then what happens is because of people's own belief system, it allows it even more than if they weren't aware of it or if they weren't in fear. When people are in fear, their immune system shut down even more. So in a way, because of that fear and that belief, it's more even probable than anything. It's almost, that's what's allowing it to come in more so than anything else, I believe. And there's a book called Healing and Recovery by Dr. David Hawkins, and he talks about the power of the mind and how much the mind influences the body. So what these people know, these elite people that want to remain in control, is that if they can control the minds of millions or billions of people, then they control the energy. But what's happening is because of the internet, they're losing that ability to get away with as much because more and more people being woke, they waking up. And it's being harder and harder for them to remain in that energy dynamic. Now, what is the second reason that the elite, their plan, will not control the masses? The second reason is the energy no longer sustains it. The energy we're moving into right now, like 2020 for me has been a year of massive shadow work. Now, what is shadow work? Shadow work is where you shine light on what you were prior unaware of. For me, in my own life, what I have overcome this year and been through is letting go of a shadow aspect of myself that I think I got from my childhood, my dad, of being a people pleaser / nice guy. That was a shadow part of myself. I was being that way, seeking people's validation, seeking people's approval, wanting people to like me, realizing that it's not authentic, and breaking out of that, being a little bit more polarizing. This video is probably a little bit more polarizing. Some people are going to love this video. Some people are going to hate this video. But I don't care. I don't care the way that I used to, where I was attached to what people thought. I'm just being me. But also the nice guy mentality, shedding that has been a huge year of letting go of that shadow. Also, this year has been a huge year of me letting go of certain things coming back from past trauma that I went through, becoming aware of that shadow. Also becoming aware of the shadow that I had, that I was trying so hard to be successful on YouTube, to get this gold play button, to have everybody like me, not realizing that I was being driven by significance. I didn't feel worthy on the inside. Therefore, if I could finally be worthy, then, and I get all this like accomplishments and money and success, and people would like me and accept me, and I'd feel worthy finally. The shadow of that was I wasn't realized how much I was driven by it. I started to become aware of it. Also, once you start getting it, you start to realize it doesn't really fill you up the way you thought it was. You're like, I get more fulfillment out of doing these videos, making these podcasts and stuff like that than I do anything else. So the shadow, though, from my own personal life has been coming up. Now, at a collective level, the shadow has also been coming up. It's almost like a big purge. You guys ever heard of plant medicine? Like Aya or something like that? Doing these plant medicines, it brings up stuff that is subconscious that you're not aware of, so you can look at it and let it go. And once you let it go, you feel free. Well, right now what's happening is all this shadow stuff, the shadow, whatever you want to call it, it's coming up for us to become aware of. And then it's about us being free from it, making a new choice about what we allow and what we don't allow. And here's the funny thing, too. You look out into the world, all the ridiculousness that you can just feel. And we are just agreeing with it. We're just going with the flow. At any point, we could decide as a collective, hey, we don't want this anymore, but it's almost like a lot of people are afraid to go against the grain. They wouldn't be able to enforce it. And a lot of the people enforcing it probably know it's like a circus anyways, and they probably wouldn't even enforce it if they had a choice, but we just do what we're told. We do what we're told. Do this. Put this on between bites. Do this. Okay, I will. Okay, I will. I don't actually agree with this or think it has anything to do, but I will do it. We can make a new choice at any moment. That's the funny thing. Now, the second thing, though, as energy doesn't sustain it anymore, the energy we're moving into is things have to be in super high integrity in order for it to be sustainable. I felt this in my own life. I felt this in and just the society in general. You can just tell the old structures are falling away. If anything is not in integrity, then you're going to become aware of it and let it go. And the energy does not sustain what has been. That's why it's all falling away. I even go far as to say is that, I get this feeling that even the president, we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with this whole presidential thing. What I feel is the energy coming in now, moving forward, doesn't really sustain either. And one maybe more than the other. One I think is much more controlled than the other, just from what I can observe and stuff. But it's like, it just feels like something, what I feel is going to happen is some curveball is going to come in. Some little curveball is going to come in and something third-party thing that we're not even aware of is going to happen. I don't know. That's just what it feels like. But the energy does not sustain the old paradigm or the old way of going about things. So that's the second thing. So the third reason the elites' mass control thing is not going to happen is because every step they take, every card up their sleeve that they're doing, it is becoming more and more obvious to the public. They're revealing themselves the more they do things like this. It's becoming almost predictable. It's becoming predictable. When you look at the sequence of events and you kind of understand how the dark agenda thinks, the way they think is problem, reaction, solution. They do is they give a problem, which then gives a reaction. The reaction gets people into fear, uncertainty, looking for a solution of safety, and then they have the solution. So it's like, here's this thing at the beginning of the year. Oh, we got this thing that if you do this thing, then guess what? You're safe and you can feel good about yourself. Then people are willingly open to this thing that they normally wouldn't be open to. But it's becoming very predictable. It's like, I'm not going to do that. Or people are just waking up, really. And it's almost like the more they do and the further down this rabbit hole they go, the more obvious it's becoming. So the way that I look at it, even if there's more cards up their sleeve, it's almost just digging them into a deeper and deeper hole. Even when you look at this whole election thing, it's becoming very obvious that there's other factors at play. There's other things going on. There's a certain level of control. I'll be honest, I live in Arizona, Everywhere you go in Arizona, just about, there are signs for Trump everywhere. I went to Phoenix. There's billboards. So many cars say it. Yet, somehow, Arizona went the other way. It makes no sense to me. But as things like that happen and people that actually live here are like, how is that possible? Where are these people at? You know what I mean? Like, it's just very interesting. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just this neutral observer that's just floating through space, man. I just want to share some of these ideas with you guys. But it's little red flags. I'm like, it's not adding up. But more and more things I think will continue to be like that. And it's going to make it more and more obvious. So kind of what I was talking about earlier, that people will realize that they don't have to go with it anymore. Like, we're all just agreeing to these things because of we've always kind of listened to authority. A lot of it's programming too. Think about it. When we're kids, we go to school, we're told what to believe, and we're told to be quiet, sit in our desk, read some stupid book that we may or may not like. And some people love school. Some people go to school and they love it. I'm not dissing on it. But we're primed at a very early age to be very obedient. And even now, we're listening to authority. You know, I'm not some like trying to start a revolution or anything. I'm just pointing out some things. We're just going with the flow, and we're just allowing and just agreeing, yes, we should all have to do this, we should all have to do that. And this goes beyond just the thing that we wear. This isn't even about that. But all I'm saying is that when things happen in 2021, because things will happen in 2021, be very cautious to jump into the reaction mode where everyone else is. You know, we do have a choice with how we respond to things happening in the world. A lot of people watch the media, so they're brainwashed or primed to get into reaction mode, but realize there are a lot of people on the planet that aren't freaking out right now. Yes, there's certain limitations. I'm going to Tulum in a week, and when I go to Tulum, I'm going to have to wear this thing on a 5-hour flight, and I was in Costa Rica a couple weeks ago, and it was a little more inconvenient to travel, but it wasn't really, you know, and yes, I wanted to start doing live events in 2020, but there's also, you know, there's it doesn't have to be as bad as we think. And yes, I want to also point, there are people that went through way, 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 way worse things. I'm not complaining in any way. There are people that went through way worse things. There are people that got it and they were in a lot of pain, or people that passed away. I know people in my family. I know somebody that passed away from it. Well, they said that he passed away from it. He actually passed away because he was 80-something years old on dialysis, and when he went to the hospital, they gave him 9 tests. Finally, one said that he had it, and then what happened is they wouldn't give him his dialysis because of the level of the hospital he was in, and then he passed away shortly after that, and he was getting dialysis 3 times a week before that, but then they claimed him as having that. When we got on the phone with him, because we weren't allowed to see him, he goes, I don't have this thing they say I have. He's just very clear about it. He just knew he didn't. He's also intuitive, but very interesting. Just pointing out things like that. And but I know people have been through way worse. I know that there is a thing that, you know, is to be taken. There are people that have been through the pain. I'm not discounting that. I'm just kind of pointing to kind of the ridiculousness of the level of fear that's being projected and the exaggeration that's happening when there are 300,000 people in Japan that committed suicide this year, which is more people that have died from that thing. You know, there are more people that die every year as well from like famine, not having enough food to eat. Yet, that's not on the news. That's not like causing us to put a whole bunch of money towards that to fix that. But yet, this thing has an agenda has a much level different energy flow. But like I said, people are becoming empowered. Also, there are so many people listening to this right now that are in a way, the leading edge. I don't want this to become a significant thing where we're like, I'm a light worker, I'm better than other people. That's not the point. The point is, many of you listening to this, though, are at the leading edge of understanding this information, and I believe are going to be leaders moving forward and helping other people to wake up, because more people will continue to wake up as time goes on. And that is also the 5th reason the elite will not remain mass control, is because just too many people are waking up. It's a combination of people like you at the leading edge that have an effect on people in your life. People will be gravitating to you and the information you know. Even if you don't like verbally say it or post about it on social media, just you knowing about it affects the collective consciousness. And when people see the way you are, they may come to you for questions or answers. And you kind of tell them and help them question reality a little bit and start to see a new possibility. I think that it's going to be very positive, the era that we move to on the planet. Yes, the old's going to fall away moving forward. Yes, there's going to be some like little road bumps along the way, but it's going to be very, very empowering. And it's going to be literally be ushering in a new age. Some people call this the Kali Yuga. This is a part of a process, but the Kali Yuga is this era that we've been moving into for a while now. And as we move into it, ancient civilizations have known about this time for a very long time. I believe that we came here to be a part of this shift in consciousness. And we came here to wake up to more of who we are. We came here to realize that the way things are is a timeline that doesn't actually serve us, but we prefer to wake up. And with the power of the internet, with so many people waking up in the world, we're going to eventually realize we don't have to continue to go and to be told what to do. We can decide as a collective what we want to do, and we can really start living in a completely new way, what we call 5D level of consciousness, where we realize we're all connected. What you do to someone else, you do to another aspect of yourself. So how do you treat other people? You know, and this restructuring of the government is going to be something I think that continues to happen. I think that there'll be new technology that eventually comes. It won't all happen immediately. I think it'll happen in different stages, but I think that we're moving into an era on the planet that is so empowering, so exciting, but that there will be some last like cards up the elite sleeve to try to remain power, and we just have to not be in reaction to it. We have to remember our purpose. Many of you are here to like help usher in this new age in whatever way is authentic to you. Many of you are healers. Many of you are people that are meant to be a part of this. And if you didn't know, I do have something with my buddy Victor Oda where we show people how to go full-time doing what they love, whether you're a healer, a coach, a content creator, an artist, whatever. If you want to learn more about that, go to fulltimepurpose.com, click the link below, and that will, there's a training there that will show you step by step how to do that. It's not as hard as you think. You don't need a big number of followers to do it. You just need the right strategy. And we show you what we wish we would have known in the very beginning, because 1 or 2 months into this, I would have been full-time instead of 6 months into it, and to like starting making daily videos on YouTube. But anyways, now is the most powerful time to be alive, I believe, and I'm so excited to be here with you. So with that being said, if you didn't know, if you're listening to this on the YouTube channel, there is the Aaron Doughty podcast is on iTunes and Spotify. It's completely free, and it's very easy to download and listen to the episodes. There's hundreds of other episodes from before. I'm starting to post these on the main YouTube channel, but you can check it out there. Other than that, if you're listening to this on the podcast, there's also a video form of this on my main YouTube channel and my Aaron Doughty podcast channel. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And as always, I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Peace, much love, and namaste.